Today we are discussing violet, a lovely little edible flower with a few medicinal uses that may surprise you. Welcome back, folks. My name is Danae, and I am a gardener and herbalist and, in general, nature enthusiast, and I love teaching folks everything they didn't know about the plants growing in their own backyard, whether they're good eating, useful medicinally, or in general, great for creating healthy, resilient ecosystems. I say this because today's plant is one that is all three. We'll talk about the modern and historical uses of violet, different ways to cook with it, and of course its many medicinal uses. So without further ado, let me introduce you to this royal springtime flower. Sweet violets are perennial and self-seeding plants who pop up among our other early spring arrivals like burdock, dandelion, creeping Charlie, and chickweed. Violets have a genus all of their own called viola, and there are numerous species of violets in many colors, from shades of purple and pink to bright white and yellow. Other more distinct species in the viola genus include heart's-ease and pansy. All can be used medicinally, but today we will focus mostly on sweet violet or viola odorata. One final note, there is a common houseplant called African violets. This is not a member of the violet family and is neither edible or medicinal as far as I'm aware. The leaves of sweet violet are typically cordate or heart-shaped. The leaves may also have a slightly waxy or shiny appearance. The edges of the leaves are serrated or toothed, and violets do readily cross-pollinate with one another, so the leaf edges may vary from looking more sharp or more scalloped, as well as the waxy appearance of the leaves. I have seen some that have more of a matte appearance. Another useful way to identify violet is by taking the leaf and crushing it in your fingers. Take a small part and break it up, and just kind of roll it between your fingers for a bit. And what you'll notice as you're rolling it is it will start to become a little wet and a little slippery. This is not only a useful way in identifying violet, but it also gives some hints into its medicinal and culinary uses. So this is what we would call the mucilaginous quality of violet. Violet flowers are quite distinct and are a useful way to identify the plant. Every violet flower has 5 petals and 5 sepals, the sepals being the green part of the flower. You'll notice that the first 2 upper petals tend to splay back, the 2 side petals stick out on the sides like little wings, and finally the 5th petal sits right in the middle. And you'll notice that this petal looks a little bit different. The 5th petal of sweet violet and many hybrids typically has darker streaks of color that run the length of the petal. And finally, on the back, you will find a distinct tube called a spur, where the nectar of the violet is stored. Speaking of nectar, violets are an invaluable source of early springtime pollen for many pollinators, but specifically the violet mining bee, a species of bee that specializes in harvesting nectar from the violet flower and nothing else. The seeds of violet are also a significant food source for ants and bees. In fact, ants are known to facilitate the spread of violets by moving around those seeds in your yard. So now that we know how to identify violet, let's get into its many uses. All aerial parts of viola odorata are edible. Here are the medicinal constituents listed in the book The Good Living Guide to Natural and Herbal Remedies by Catalin Yardley. Violet leaves contain saponins, which are known to decrease blood lipids, lower cancer risk, and lower blood pressure; mucilage, which is known to provide a moistening, cooling effect to soothe both the skin and the internal organs; flavonoids, which offer medicinal actions that are anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant; phenolic glycosides, which are useful for reducing inflammation and fighting bacterial and fungal infections; and volatile oils, which in concentrated form are often antibacterial, antimicrobial, and antifungal. Violets are considered a cooling and moistening herb, making them useful for ailments that are hot or dry in nature. Applied topically as a wash or poultice, it has been reportedly used to treat eye infections, hemorrhoids, skin ailments, and varicose veins. Violet has a long history of use for lung conditions, both applied directly to the chest as a poultice or ingested as a tea. In the 16th century, violets were used by the English as an effective expectorant to treat bronchitis and the common cold. An expectorant is used to loosen up mucus in the sinuses, throat, and lungs. Rosemary Gladstar, a renowned herbalist, uses violet leaf in her formulas for treating lymphatic congestion, alongside other flowers like red clover and calendula. One of the most exciting uses for violet, in my opinion, are its promises for treating headaches, specifically migraine headaches. You see, violet leaf contains salicylic acid, a compound very similar to the active ingredient in aspirin. In a 2018 study, a combination of sweet violet, coriander, and Damascus rose were found to significantly reduce the frequency, duration, and severity of migraine headaches. When used in isolation, violet extracts were studied for their sedative and pre-anesthetic effects and were found in certain doses to be more effective than diazepam. I will link the 2018 study in the description of this video. I like to prepare violet medicinally either as a tincture, a decoction, or simply as a tea, whether fresh or dried. In fact, when I have headaches related to seasonal allergies, a combination of violet leaf, creeping Charlie, and stinging nettle in a tea is kind of my go-to. I also like to add a few drops of violet leaf tincture to really help with the migraine or headache component of seasonal allergies. Dried violet has this wonderful, sweet aroma, probably where it gets that name odorata, and sometimes I just like to open the jar of dried violet leaves just to get a little aromatherapy. In fact, in the Victorian era, France was known to harvest as much as 3 tons of violet leaf per year to make violet perfumes. Violet leaf is high in vitamin C and beta-carotene. If you've ever made a soup and thought, this is way too thin and watery, consider adding violet leaves. The mucilaginous quality of violets behaves similarly to okra in helping to add body to a soup and can be used to replace other soup thickeners like cornstarch and flour. I also appreciate this in my teas for the same reason, as it gives the tea a unique mouthfeel that can be a great switch up from the tartness and dryness of most teas. Violet leaves are wonderfully mild in flavor, lacking the bitterness of most dark green herbs, so you can flavor your tea with a different herb and use violet as a healthy filler herb. The French are known for creating syrups from the extract of violets, and this has become very popular in modern day. This syrup is made from the purple petals of sweet violet. 1 cup of petals are combined with 1 cup of hot water and 1 cup of sugar, then put on heat and reduced down until the desired consistency for the syrup is achieved. In traditional cuisine, this violet syrup was combined with marshmallow root to make the original marshmallow dessert with the added novelty of violet's eye-catching color. So you may be looking at this bottle and wondering, I was trying to make violet leaf syrup, why the heck did it turn this, what I think is a lovely emerald green color? Well, there's actually 2 ways that this can happen. The first way you can end up with a slightly green violet leaf syrup, rather than that lovely purple or blue color, is if you accidentally leave the sepals or the green part of the violet flower intact when you're making the syrup. It's very important that you remove those or you are going to end up with the chlorophyll in your violet leaf syrup. And the chloroplasts in the plant are what impart that greenish color. Now this is a much darker and more translucent color of green. I kind of think of it as an emerald green. And this is actually a natural process. So what happens is when you are making your violet leaf syrup, there are two types of water you can use. You can use hard water or you can use distilled water. So if you use distilled water, you're going to get that bluish purple violet color that's more traditionally known for violet syrup. But if you use hard water, the minerals in the hard water have a chemical reaction with the dye in violet, and it causes this very beautiful emerald green color. And so this doesn't happen at first. I remember when I was mixing the petals with the hot water, it still had that very pretty kind of bluish color. But as I added the sugar and started to heat it up on the stove, that's when it started to turn into this emerald green color. So no, this isn't because I forgot to remove the sepals or the green part of the plant. This was intentional. We used our well water, which is very high in minerals, and that is how you end up with this lovely emerald green. So that is it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video all about violet. If you did, please show your support by hitting the like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, folks.